Good afternoon, good evening, and welcome back to another RBNY UK video. Today, I am delighted to say that I'm back with the man himself, Mr. Ronnie Piper. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. How are you?
Matt, I'm very well, very well. It's really good to be chatting Red Bulls with you again. It's very exciting.
Yeah, it's been a bit of weird few weeks, but just happy to be back. Football's on, sun shining. What else can we be looking forward to?
Absolutely, mate. I am, as always, Mr. Scott Humphreys, and today we will be bringing you a pre-match preview of the LA Galaxy next weekend. Yeah, should we get going?
Yeah. Obviously,
superb.
Technical issues straight away, but here we go. We've got this underway. Let's go.
Right, so obviously the game is on the 25th of April for us, which is at 10:30 BST, which is very exciting, and available on Free Sports, which I mean we'll see what time that kicks off. Might be 10:30, might be 11:30. We might get to see 5 minutes. We'll see. And it's at LA Galaxy. It's our one and only Western Conference away tie this year.
No, definitely. I think I was just looking at it. I was just thinking, I think sometimes from London to Manchester is a long away game. Then I realised if you're doing New York to LA, it's just unbelievably long.
Oh yeah, absolutely. You know what? I don't really want to get on the train to Birmingham to go and see West Brom away. So let alone travelling half the way across the world to go and see another state. Nah, fair play. Go on, mate.
Yeah, so obviously last time out, we sadly fell victim to a 2-1 home defeat to Kansas City. We was playing well and everything, but it was just a 1 minute, 2 minute spell that really put the nagger in the heart of all of us because it was looking really good. Caden, the magician himself, pulls out a lovely finish. And then just a sucker blow, first goal, and then sucker blow straight afterwards. And it kind of just killed the game off a bit because we were so optimistic. When we was 1-0 up, I was very confident we'd get a second, maybe keep going. But how can we say it's Red Bulls is Red Bulls? But promising signs. We were saying this earlier. I definitely think you would agree, Scott, that there was positives to take into this Galaxy game.
I know, absolutely. I mean, we were speaking throughout the game. We were texting, I think, from minute 1 to minute 90, and sort of discussing what was going on. The first half, but for a lot of it, we spent most of the game in their half. I thought we kept the ball quite well. The midfield looked very, very good. Davis, I think, he's one of the top players at the minute in the league for distance covered. So I think that's fantastic. We moved around. We were missing an edge at the end. I think Fabio did really well up top and looked dangerous, but he never looked like he was going to put the ball in the net. I think looking at Aiden Clark, he's a constant threat to any side in this division. And then Christian CASSERES in the 10, sort of surprisingly moving forward and creating chances. The 2 goals, the first one, Duncan should have been gave away the penalty in the end, despite him having an absolutely fantastic first half an hour of the game. And then the second goal again, I'm not going to look at putting blame all on one footballer for a result, but it was Carl Duncan again should really have taken the ball and went past him, and it went in, and it was 2 minutes. It was 2 minutes of complete madness. When if you'd have asked either of us 5 minutes before, we were more than confident that we might have gone and got a second. But it's one of those. It's opening day, and I think again those sort of offensive lapses are due to the fact that we've not had a pre-season. We've not had a proper pre-season. We've had 60 minutes against Miami. We've had the 90 minutes against Tampa Bay Rowdies, and then the 90 minutes against DC. That's all the pre-season football we've had. Those little mistakes will be ironed out as the season goes on. But overall, I'm pleased with what I saw and excited at where we're going to go, rather than too disappointed.
Oh no, yeah, perfectly summed up. And the our lovely hosts for the weekend had a big 3-2 victory first game out against David Beckham's Inter Miami, because everyone in England seems to think it's David Beckham's team. He plays for them, he manages them, even though he's just higher up. And obviously Phil Neville in charge. I found quite funny that fell victim to two ex-Man United goals in Javier Hernandez, who was looking good, looking sharp for early on in the season. Then the big man himself, Mr. Sasha Kleshton, coming up with the 81st minute winner was. I'd love to see other teams score, but I love to see Sasha get on the score sheet. Lovely player, always tried his hardest for us. And people do forget he was a Champions League footballer back with Anderlecht, so he's played at the highest level and deserves everything he gets at the late stage of his career.
Absolutely, Sasha's great. His assist rate and ability to play in that 10 was always really good, and I love Sasha. I think for me, looking at that game, they looked quite exposed with the Robbie Robinson goal. That was his first MLS goal, and then obviously the penalty. But they look good. It was a good start. This is Greg Vanny's first season back at the Galaxy in charge rather than playing. And let's be honest, Greg Vanny is one of the top 2, 3, 4 managers in this division. He's won titles with TFC. He's won a treble with TFC, and he's got and moved on to arguably the greatest team in Major League Soccer history. So they're going to be dangerous and they're going to cause us problems. They did very well on the weekend, and I expect to see exactly the same on Sunday, to be honest.
No, yeah, perfect. And just alluding to what we saw first, starting 11 from last time out, I thought obviously there was always going to be interesting decisions on opening day, because obviously some players are not fully fit, some players are not fitting in the system yet, but obviously quite a few new names for a starting 11, and normally when you see a load of starting new names, it just comes with it that you're not going to get it. But I was very impressed with how the team played. Obviously we was just talking to it before we come on here about how White and Fabio was going to set up, and obviously last week White kind of drifted out quite a lot to the right. Same Fabio did as well to the left as well, but I think you could see the spearhead was Fabio. He was the one pushing higher up, and White did drop into that right wing slot on occasions. But I was very impressed with some of the players, and obviously first game of the season, so you can't really held anything against them. But obviously, I think, like we said, CASSERES in the number 10 spot was my biggest surprise when I see the lineup.
I think personally, we expect Gerhard to set up with a midfield diamond and then 2 out forwards. I think that's the way we started the game. And as the game sort of moved, the formation seemed to move with it, and I really quite enjoyed that. We all expected Clark to play in the 10. After the DC game, we knew that Davis was going to be the sort of holding midfielder and the man to put the groundwork in. And then we thought it would be DIARRA and CASSERES sort of shuttling in between. But obviously, Clark ended up drifting further wide. CASSERES moved into the 10, and then having DIARRA and Davis together in the midfield, while White was able to go out onto the right-hand side and a little bit deeper through the middle to play balls through to Fabio. Genuinely, I think I looked through that team. I think Coronel had a good debut. Duncan, obviously, in my opinion, at fault for the goals, but as a sort of whole 90 minutes, had a good game. Sean Nealis was my biggest shock at the start, if I'm honest. He was the one that really threw me, but definitely afforded himself quite well. Aaron Long at the back is never going to have a particularly bad game, and nearly scored on a corner. Gutman for me was my personal man in the match. I think he sort of, you could tell again, fitness was an issue, and toward the last sort of half an hour of the game didn't look quite as strong as he did at the beginning. But that first half performance from him, his ability down that left-hand side, is both defensively and attacking. He's going to be some player for us at the minute. What do you think about the midfield?
No, yeah, I was quite interested in DIARRA as well, because he's a powerhouse. What we was always kind of looking for, because we always have quite slight players in there, but obviously you could tell he was just like everyone's going to be. It was kind of a pre-season-esque game that everyone's not up to full speed, full power. But I do like what I see there. It's early days, and I think he's a good partnership with Davis, because they're very different players, so they can blend very well together. But then having CASSERES just in front, he's a bit quicker, he's obviously a bit more slight, so he can get forward. And maybe that's what he needed, CASSERES, because like, don't get me wrong, he runs his socks off every game, but maybe in the training pitch they've seen something, like they might have seen that actually, you know what, he's got the potential to be a very good number 10 in the league, or even like a right-sided 10 and have Clark as a left-sided 10 as well. But like, just touching on Caden Clark, you always see from season to season a player that you know will end up in Europe, and we've said it for quite a while, but Caden Clark at a very young teenage years is what he is. He's an unreal talent. How we managed to pick him up and put him straight in the 11, I can't believe. Well, let's just put it this way: Brendan Aronson's been in Salzburg now for this season. I've got a feeling you might be seeing him in even potentially a Leipzig kit next with Tyler Adams, because I think he's that good. I think Premier League teams may even be looking over the States, looking at him. And just touching on like Fabio on his debut, obviously didn't have the most clear-cut chances. He had an overhead attempt that just didn't go in, but he looks good. He looks sharp up front. Kind of reminds me of Bradley, like in his terms of his work rate, but obviously who knows what we're going to bring in the future. Every game ticks past, he'll be quicker, he'll be fitter, and like who knows what they're working on in training ground this week. That I am looking forward to the game, and I think it should be a good outing, especially traveling west. Get the West game out of the way, because you don't, when it gets to the crunch time of the season, you don't really want to be traveling across the whole of the United States, especially.
No, I agree. For me, I think DIARRA, his performance in that game was massively underrated. I think, and this isn't on flow below at all, but I think DIARRA coming out of the game was a big loss for us in terms of what he was doing in the middle. Touching on Clark again, I think, some clubs get a generational talent once every 10, 15, 20 years. Some get one every 3, 4, 5 years. We're churning them out at an extreme rate at the minute when you look at both Adams and Clark. And I wouldn't be surprised at all if he skipped the Salzburg level and moved straight up to Leipzig next time round. I completely agree with you. I think, obviously, there have been a couple of changes this week. It's been a quiet week, but I don't want to go too much into it. But we've brought 2 new players in Frankie Meyer and Patrick Kamala. Neither, I believe, will start the game against Galaxy, but I definitely think that Amaya might be involved from the bench. I think sort of moving forward, I think Kamala will come in for Brian White. I think that's an inevitability. And then I think the other change that we need to sort of consider that may happen is, now that Tom Edwards is in camp, will he come in at right back in a sort of rotation role for Carl Duncan? I think the squad depth at the minute is really quite exciting, and I think despite the lack of pre-season, the different options that we have to rotate in is a very big plus point for New York Red Bulls this year.
No, yeah, especially I was looking at some coming out of the training camp this week. Obviously, had Edwards come over from Stoke, but also Reyes at centre half that was looking quite sharp as well. So might see him in rotation very soon as well. But it's like, whereas in past we've had the starting 11 guaranteed, and there is competition for spaces, but what is actually going to be up for grabs? Whereas now I really can see if a player plays well on the training ground or plays well in a match, comes off the bench, does well, we could see them coming in for the next game. And I think that's the best thing about a winning team, is that you never see a winning team where they've got a starting 11 and that's the game every time. You look at some of the European teams where one of their best players could be on the bench one game because a younger player is playing well. And I think that's key, especially for the long season that's up ahead.
No, agreed. You only have to look at teams like Liverpool and the fact that, they can pull out Salah, they can pull out Mane, and they can throw in Diogo Jota, who I obviously think very highly of, having watched him for a couple of years down here. But no, I think very positive altogether, and looking forward to moving on to next weekend.
Yeah, no, definitely. Moving on, looking at the LA Galaxy lineup from last time, obviously, but no one in these shores or even Europe or in the world doesn't know Javier Hernandez up top. He's been there, done that, literally near enough in most countries in the world. Obviously, big time player at Man U and West Ham as well in England. But he looked quick, he looked sharp last weekend. I've got to admit, like sometimes last year, kind of looked a bit off the pace a bit, but I think we're going to have to keep a good eye on him at the weekend. Well, obviously, they've got talent, most places on the pitch that would get in most teams, especially Vazquez at the number 10. We don't have to say anything about him. Everyone who watches MLS or knows about MLS just knows how good he is and can turn any game on a sixpence at any point. I don't know what you think about him.
Yeah, obviously Greg Bunny knows him really well, having him at TFC. Yes, he's an aging player, but he's a very, very well versed technical player who can cause a lot of problems. And sitting in that 10 behind a player like Hernandez, I think that's something that we really do have to be concerned about. I think obviously Vasquez will be looked at by DIARRA, by Davis, and Hernandez I'd like to think will be man marked by Aaron Long. So it'll be some interesting clashes in the sort of New York defensive third. Obviously, looking around their team a bit more, you've got Leggett, who I watched them play Jamaica. I think it was the Jamaica game. There was another game. I watched 2 USMNT games a couple of weeks ago, and he got a brace, and he looked very, very dangerous. He's one of the sort of better players in this division. Dos Santos, again, he's an industrial midfielder, gets through players, can make a pass. And then looking a bit further back, Daniel Steres, he's one of my sort of favoured centre halves in this division. And then Jonathan Bond, I'm not too keen on Jonathan Bond because he used to wear a blue and white striped West Bromwich Albion shirt a year or so ago, and we don't like those lots. So let's hope we can put a couple past him. But no, I mean, LA Galaxy are LA Galaxy. They are the Manchester United of the US. They, the most illustrious team, the team with all the names, the team that always get that 34-year-old aging superstar, the team that we have to thank perhaps for the DP rule due to obviously Mr. Beckham, and the team that brings the MLS interest more than any other to the United Kingdom. Obviously, we have a little bit better taste than some, but I can guarantee you walk around England, you the most likely MLS jersey you're going to see walking around is an LA Galaxy shirt. They're a threat, and they're, like Man United, they've not had the best couple of years, but with the new manager, they're a team that I'd never just look at as an easy game.
No, yeah, definitely. And I think touching on, like, obviously we see a load of LA Galaxy merchandise over it, but a lot of people might be more accustomed to them because they're very much a Sky Sports prime team that you'll see them quite a lot in the season. So quite a lot of people in the UK do have a following for them because Sky Sports, obviously, with all of the Gerrard and the Beckham stuff that's happened in the past, have put them on a lot, and obviously Zlatan of more recent years. So a lot of people do know them, but it's one of them that they're starting a rebuild process in a way that they've started moving in another direction. And don't get me wrong, absolute sensational manager that I think could turn any team into a much more of a winning team because he's just that touch of class. And he's one of them that we have to watch. And I'm actually very looking forward to the game on Sunday. Be hopefully a nice way to top up the weekend with a West Coast win, but we'll have to see how that pans out over the next coming hours, so to speak. But moving on to what we said for last week's game, and obviously we are no proclaimed geniuses, but there's 4 zeros, which started well. So I was obviously the optimistic. I thought we're going to start the season with a win. And at one point, I think like everyone, we thought, actually, you know what? We might be picking up the first 3 points of the season. But not like everyone else who had Luke had a 2-2 draw. Put on another day easily could have been. And Scott, and obviously I guess Ben Bray last week put 1-1. And at one point, I guess, Scott, you thought you was going to get the points for this predictor.
I thought I was in. I thought after that penalty, I thought, you know what, we'll see the game out. We'll defend a bit deeper, and we'll see it out as a 1-1 draw. But close but no cigar, unfortunately.
Yeah, so it just proves that it's just football is football. We can talk all we want about it, but in the end, no one knows what's going to happen in their 90 minutes when they're on the grass, because SKC played a good game. They was in it for the long run. They snatched and grabbed the 3 points, and fair play to them. We wish them well on the rest of their season, but we just got to return our attentions to Sunday. And talking about return our attention to Sunday, let's see what everyone's gone. So I see, Scott, you've gone for a 1-0 Red Bulls win.
Absolutely. I am ever the optimist until we hit the playoffs, and then my optimism starts to drain a little bit. due to recent disappointments. But no, I think we might go and snatch a 1-0 win. I think if we make a couple of tweaks to the side, go out the way that we did in the first half, and then see the game out a little bit more, I think we can certainly get a 1-0 win. I'm going to put money on Fabio getting his first Red Bulls goal. So yeah, 1-0 Red Bull New York.
Yeah, and as everyone's definitely looking at now is and having a little mumble under their breath at me having a 2-1 Galaxy thing. Why I've gone with a 2-1 Galaxy this week. I think the journey is a massive factor. I think when you do play West Coast, and don't get me wrong, it's going to be beautiful weather as well. And who knows, with New York's a bit like London, it could be snowing 1 minute and sunny the next. So I think the weather will have a big part as well. But I think it's going to be an interesting game, entertaining game. And I'm definitely hoping I'm wrong here. But I've gone 2-1 Galaxy. I think, like you said, I think Fabio's going to get his first goal for the Red Bulls on Sunday. But I think Hernandez and Vasquez are going to hit one each for the hosts and just put it out of our reach. But I think guaranteed this year, we're going to go down fighting every game. And I think it's going to be a close game right up until the final whistle. Touching on the other ones, Luke has gone 2-1 Red Bull. So he's going for a nice, lovely game as well. Going on a win, same as you, Scott. And our guest this week is Jack, who some of you may know from our blogs on our website, is one of Scott's recruits. And we're trying to brainwash him. But we will be revealing his prediction on Sunday on our pre-match, so to speak. We will tweet it out and just say what we think of him, and he'll give a little description why he thinks that result. But obviously that forfeit is still looming large at the end of the season. So we need to start getting some points on the board. But I'm hoping come this time next week, I'm actually still on 0. I would happily take being on 0 and Luke and Scott being on the points, because that means we've got the 3 points. But we will obviously be touching on that on our pod next Friday, episode 4. I can't wait to be back on it. It's always fun to be back on with the guys. Obviously, we'll be looking back at the SKC and the Galaxy games. We'll have a bit more in-depth detail on everything what happens, and obviously actually talking about the transfers. So it's been a busy week or so with a couple of signings coming in, but we'll go into more detail. And I know you, for one, Scott, loved looking at future games, looking back on games. Is there anything in particular you're really looking forward to talk about on the pod?
Yeah, I mean, like, firstly, sort of loosely analysing the game. It's just I'm getting Luke on board and sort of going over these things again. Then for me, it's just looking at what's happening with the team and how the week's been in training and how the boys have been getting on, really. I think the start to this week was quite quiet. I think we all had a couple of days where we just thought, we can sit back and relax a little bit now and let things happen. But of course, this bizarre and crazy transfer window we've had, we've managed to get 2 players in at the end of the week. I am incredibly excited. I'm again not going to go too much into it, but incredibly excited about both pieces of business. I think looking at the striker depth now, we are very, very, very comfortable at the top. And then Frankie and Mara, I think we really needed that extra sort of deep line playmaker, tight midfielder who can start spraying a couple of balls out. There's also been a couple of rumours about transfers out, which we'll go into on the podcast. But I'm just looking forward to having a chat with the pair of you and talking all things RBNY.
No, yeah, definitely. It's going to be great to be back. Obviously, if you have missed any of our last podcasts, they're available on all other platforms now, especially YouTube, which this one's going to be live on. But in future, we'll be bringing you more YouTube action. Hopefully, we're going to have a load of array of stuff from in-person interviews with other fans, guests, and everything in between, I'd say. And then also, hopefully, trying to get out to the States when it's safe to do so, and when Mr. Boris wants us to bring you a nice little vlog from Red Bull or any other stadium within the MLS. But no, I think it's a good future ahead. And just to say thanks for everyone for joining us yet again for another episode of the pre-match. We will be bringing this to you every single game, and sometimes we might bring you a post-match if it's been an incredible victory or just been a load to talk about. But otherwise, that's all from me and Scott. We'd love to see you on Friday for the next podcast. And last but not least, up the Red Bulls.
Thank you very much. Up the Red Bulls.